In the previous spoiler, when Wang Lin was about to pass through the second layer entrance to return to the first layer, he encountered an ambush by the seven-leaf elder savage, completely blocking his path. Wang Lin knew there was no escape and dared not act rashly. The elder waved his hand, reaching straight for Wang Lin. With no other choice, Wang Lin summoned his forbidden banner and giant sword to defend himself. However, no matter how the forbidden banner transformed or how sharp the giant sword was, they could not pose any threat to the elder. Worse still, since the immortal remains pit formed its own isolated world, Wang Lin couldn't even use the forbidden banner to summon heavenly lightning to counter the elder. With no way out, Wang Lin took out the scroll. The familiar aura it emitted made the elder hesitate slightly, a hint of dread flashing in his eyes. In this brief moment, Wang Lin decisively swung his giant sword, tearing open the void, and leapt into the spatial rift, escaping into the void realm. Although the void realm was fraught with danger, where lingering too long could lead to losing direction, and spiritual energy exhaustion could result in the annihilation of the soul, Wang Lin had no other option. Only by escaping into the void could he gain a slim chance of survival. After all, he still had the star compass, his sole reliance to maintain speed in the void, preventing the elder from easily catching up. Even so, the elder did not give up and pursued Wang Lin into the void realm. At the rift, he laid down runes to prevent the space from closing. Once the rift closed, there would be no return to the outside world unless guided externally with the power to tear through space. After all, in the void realm, cultivators couldn't break open space on their own to return to real world. Though the void realm had this hidden danger, the elder remained confident. His runes stabilized the rift, and he was sure of his victory. After all, Wang Lin's spiritual energy was limited, while the elder, though not a cultivator, possessed enough runes to rival an infant transformation stage powerhouse. In a war of attrition, Wang Lin would undoubtedly exhaust his strength first, and eventually, capture would be only a matter of time. Seeing the elder relentlessly pursuing him, Wang Lin decisively took out the god-slaying chariot and began to activate it. He hadn't used it earlier because it required about half an hour to activate, during which he couldn't defend against the elder's attacks. But with the star compass in hand, Wang Lin knew the elder couldn't catch him, giving him enough time to prepare a counterattack. Once the god-slaying chariot was fully activated, Wang Lin stopped fleeing and initiated an offensive. The soul beast within the chariot roared out, charging at the elder, attempting to devour him as it had with the battle curse warriors before. However, the runes on the elder's body suddenly radiated light, stubbornly resisting the soul beast's assault. The two sides remained in a stalemate, and Wang Lin seized the opportunity to strike with his giant sword, each slash forcing the elder to retreat. The elder refused to back down, using his runes to invade Wang Lin's primordial spirit. Despite the excruciating pain, Wang Lin gritted his teeth and continued his assault, his sword light like a rainbow, pushing the elder into a steady retreat. Just as the soul beast was about to succeed, the elder suddenly activated his enlightenment rune. The rune's immense power forced the soul beast back into the god-slaying chariot. At the same time, the runes that had invaded Wang Lin's primordial spirit seemed to receive a summons, growing wildly, spreading like spring grass. Realizing the danger, Wang Lin decisively controlled the star compass to flee. After recovering from his injuries through the runes, the elder resumed his pursuit. At this moment, Wang Lin found himself in the same dire situation as Deity who before, his primordial spirit being eroded by runes. If he lost consciousness, he would be completely transformed into a rune puppet. However, Wang Lin's willpower was incredibly strong. Despite the extreme pain, he maintained a sliver of clarity while manipulating the star compass to escape at full speed, striving for one last chance of survival. It took Wang Lin nearly a month to barely suppress the runes within his body, but he still couldn't completely dispel them. During this month, he relied on pills and spirit stones to maintain his spiritual energy, continuously driving the star compass to flee. Without them, his spiritual energy would have long been exhausted. If he couldn't control the star compass, he would have certainly been captured by the elder. However, no matter how many pills and spirit stones he had, they could not sustain an endless consumption. There would eventually come a day when they would run out. This was precisely why the elder kept up his relentless pursuit. He originally thought that with Wang Lin's spiritual energy, he wouldn't last more than a few days before exhausting himself and being captured. He hadn't expected Wang Lin to possess such a wealth of pills and spirit stones, constantly replenishing his spiritual energy. This discovery made the elder suspicious, wondering if Wang Lin was an important disciple of a powerful sect from the outside world. Otherwise, how could he have so many treasures? The runes in Wang Lin's body would flare up periodically. Once his primordial spirit was completely corrupted, he would become a rune puppet. These runes were like a malignant tumor buried within him, always a hidden danger. Wang Lin recalled when he was attacked by the fire beast in the Fireburn Nation, the heaven-defying bead could absorb the power of the fire spirit. Since the leaf at his forehead was formed by runes, it likely belonged to the wood attribute, and perhaps the heaven-defying bead could absorb it as well. He immediately made up his mind, injected a large amount of spiritual energy to let the star compass fly on its own for a while, then mobilized all his spiritual energy to force the runes toward his forehead. Just as he had predicted, one leaf was successfully absorbed by the heaven-defying bead. However, Wang Lin did not indulge in joy but continued to steer the star compass at full speed to escape. After all, the seven-leaf elder who was chasing him showed no signs of giving up, and completely expelling the runes from his body was not something that could be done quickly. The elder sensed that Wang Lin possessed a treasure that could counter the runes, which only strengthened his determination to transform him into a rune puppet. In the elder's eyes, Wang Lin carried many treasures, indicating an extraordinary identity. If he could refine Wang Lin into a rune puppet, not only could he send him to the outside world to lure more cultivators, but he could also bring back precious demonic beasts, which would be a tremendous help. However, the elder did not know that Wang Lin's treasures were all acquired by chance and not gifts from a powerful sect. Months of the chase and war of attrition left both Wang Lin and the elder severely weakened. However, for Wang Lin, this kind of consumption wasn't too dire. Although he had used more than half of his pills, he still had a large reserve of spirit stones to support him. The elder, on the other hand, was in a much worse situation. His rune power was nearly depleted, making it difficult to continue entangling with Wang Lin. The elder knew that once his rune power was completely exhausted, the runes he had set at the rift would also be affected. If the runes weakened and could no longer maintain the stability of the spatial rift, the rift would close. At that point, he would be eternally trapped in the void, with no chance of returning to the outside world. With no other choice, though unwilling, the elder decided to abandon the chase and turned back toward the rift. Wang Lin saw this and cautiously maintained a safe distance, quietly following behind. However, the elder quickly realized his intentions. Enraged, he attacked again, trying to capture and kill Wang Lin. Yet, under the star compass's space transfer power, the elder could never catch up to Wang Lin, let alone capture him. To help everyone better understand the difference between teleportation and space transfer, here is a brief explanation. Teleportation usually refers to a relatively short-distance rapid movement, completed almost instantly, creating the illusion of disappearing and reappearing without any pause. Space transfer, on the other hand, is not limited to instantaneous movement. It may require the use of specific magical treasures, formations, or techniques, sometimes involving a longer process, and can even span across spaces, offering greater flexibility and strategic value. Relying on the space transfer power of the star compass, Wang Lin continuously provoked the elder, sometimes wielding his giant sword to strike fiercely, other times swiftly fleeing. He seized every gap in the elder's counterattacks, immediately space transfer away to a safe distance. Whenever the elder gave up the chase, Wang Lin would silently follow him again, launching sneak attacks from time to time. Repeating this cycle, the two gradually approached the spatial rift. Unexpectedly, instead of rushing to escape through the rift, Wang Lin targeted the runes at the rift's location. After months of attrition, the elder's rune power was already severely weakened. Wang Lin struck several times in quick succession, causing the runes to collapse instantly. The spatial rift closed with a snap, completely sealing off the elder's escape route. Wang Lin's choice to destroy the rift's exit rather than directly escaping back to the Immortal Remains pit had a deeper purpose. The star compass could only be used in the void, giving Wang Lin a speed advantage over the elder. Once back in the outside world, the star compass would lose its effect, stripping Wang Lin of his speed advantage. Unless he could instantly rush out of the Immortal Remains pit, which was impossible. To reach the entrance of the deep pit from the second layer, Wang Lin had to pass through the first layer. Given the elder's strength, comparable to an infant transformation stage cultivator, Wang Lin could not safely traverse this distance under pursuit. If he recklessly returned to the outside world, he would undoubtedly fall into the elder's deadly trap, possibly with no chance to counterattack. Thus, Wang Lin chose to sever the elder's escape by destroying the rift. This not only ensured his own safety but also served as a powerful revenge, leaving the elder with no way out, trapped in the endless void. This action infuriated the elder, completely shattering his remaining hope of turning Wang Lin into a rune puppet, replacing it with intense killing intent. However, with the speed granted by the star compass, Wang Lin managed to evade all of the elder's attacks. Although his cultivation level had not increased during this time, the prolonged chase and battles had significantly enhanced his combat experience. Despite the elder's strength far surpassing his own, Wang Lin remained unharmed. Such a sparring opportunity was rare and invaluable. Secretly pleased, Wang Lin realized the Elder had unwittingly become his mobile combat training ground. As the Elder's rune power continued to dwindle, he finally abandoned his desire for revenge. He attempted to connect with the outside world through the seven-leaf plant at his forehead, hoping his clan members would tear open space and carve out a path to survival in the boundless void. Wang Lin observed this, and though he had his suspicions, he did not plan to deliver a fatal blow. After all, the seven-leaf savage's strength was comparable to an infant transformation cultivator. If forced into a desperate fight, even with the star compass, Wang Lin could not guarantee his own safety. Weighing the pros and cons, he wisely chose to distance himself from the Elder to avoid unnecessary complications. Once he confirmed that the Elder was not following him and that there were no other threats nearby, Wang Lin used the power of the heaven-defying bead to completely absorb the remaining runes within his body. This not only resolved his crisis but also brought the heaven-defying beads would attribute close to perfection. Combined with the previous gains of the reincarnation tree and reincarnation fruit, his harvest from the immortal remains was truly abundant. However, how will Wang Lin leave this void and return to the outside world? And of the many cultivators who entered the immortal remains this time, how many will ultimately make it out alive? Stay tuned for the next spoiler, where I will reveal all. Well, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching this video. Wish you a wonderful day.